I inherited a $25.6 million company from my grandfather when he passed away. Nobody knew except me, my lawyer, and the ghost of my grandpa watching over me. The day I married Emma was the happiest of my life. I loved her for her kindness, her laughter, her compassion, not once thinking about telling her about my secret fortune. Something about her mother, Patricia, always made me uneasy, though. That woman had dollar signs for eyes. Thank God I kept quiet. If you're watching this right now, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let me know where you're watching from. Trust me, you'll want to stick around for what happened next. My grandfather was the most influential person in my life. Unlike most wealthy businessmen, Jackson Wright lived modestly and valued hard work above all else. He built his manufacturing company from nothing, working 16-hour days for years before seeing success. I spent every summer working alongside him at the factory, learning not just about business, but about character. Money is just a tool, Jared, he would tell me. It's what you build with it that matters. And be careful who you trust with your tools. When I was 26, my grandfather's health declined rapidly. On his deathbed, he called me in alone. His voice was weak, but his eyes were clear as ever. "I am leaving everything to you, son," he whispered, gripping my hand with surprising strength. "The company, the accounts, all of it. $25.6 million. But tell no one, not until you know who truly cares for you, not your money." He passed away the next day. True to his word, his lawyer Gerald contacted me about the inheritance. The company was profitable, well-managed, with dedicated employees who respected my grandfather. I could have moved into a corner office and announced myself as the new millionaire owner. Instead, I took his advice to heart. I continued living in my modest apartment, driving my 7-year-old Honda, and working as a mid-level manager in the company, a position I had earned through actual merit. Only Gerald knew I was signing off on major decisions behind the scenes. No one suspected that the unassuming guy in khakis owned the entire operation. I met Emma 2 years later at Blue Cup Coffee downtown. I had forgotten my laptop charger, and she offered to share her outlet. She was beautiful, but what struck me most was her genuine smile. Not the practiced kind that expects something in return, but the kind that gives freely. "I come here to grade papers," she told me. She was a third-grade teacher at a public school. "The kids are amazing, but they have more energy than I know what to do with sometimes." Our first date was simple: a walk in the park, followed by street tacos from a food truck. I watched carefully for any signs she was disappointed by the lack of fancy restaurants or expensive gifts. There were none. Emma talked passionately about her students, laughed at my terrible jokes, and seemed genuinely interested in me. As weeks turned to months, I fell deeply in love with her authenticity. She lived within her means, got excited about small things, and never once hinted at wanting more than what I appeared to have. When I told her I worked in manufacturing management, she asked about the work itself, not my salary or position. 6 months into dating, Emma invited me to Sunday dinner with her family. Her father, Scott, was a construction foreman with calloused hands and a straightforward manner I immediately respected. Her mother, Patricia, however, set off alarm bells from the moment I arrived. "What kind of car do you drive again, Jared?" she asked, before I had even sat down at the dinner table. "A 2018 Honda Civic," I answered honestly. Her smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "How sensible. Do you rent or own your place?" Throughout dinner, Patricia interrogated me about my job, my future prospects, and my family background. When I mentioned my grandfather had owned a business, her eyes lit up. "What kind of business? Did he leave anything to you when he passed?" "Just some fishing gear and good advice." I lied, feeling a twinge of guilt. Emma's brother Leo arrived late to dinner. He was a few years older than Emma, dressed expensively, but with a restless energy that suggested constant dissatisfaction. He barely acknowledged me until Patricia mentioned I worked in manufacturing. "What company?" he asked suddenly. Right manufacturing, I said. Never heard of it. Must be small time, he replied dismissively. After that dinner, I made an appointment with Gerald. The wise old lawyer had been my grandfather's confidant for decades. She sounds lovely, Gerald said, after I told him about Emma. But you should consider a prenuptial agreement if things get serious. Protect yourself and the company. That would mean revealing everything I said. I want to be sure first. Sure that she loves me for me. Gerald nodded thoughtfully. Your grandfather would understand that. But be careful, son. We established a trust that would protect most of the company assets regardless of my personal situation. I remained convinced that honesty would come eventually, but timing was everything. That night, lying awake, I wondered if I was being fair to Emma. Was I testing her unnecessarily? But then I remembered Patricia's calculating eyes, Leo's sudden interest when business was mentioned, and my grandfather's final warning. Sometimes the people closest to you can have the darkest intentions. Planning a wedding with Patricia involved was like navigating a minefield blindfolded. What Emma and I envisioned as a simple, meaningful ceremony quickly became a battleground of expectations. Only 75 guests, Patricia scoffed, reviewing our list. And holding it at the community center, people will think, you cannot afford better. Mom, we want something intimate, Emma explained patiently. Neither of us cares about impressing people. But what about the Hendersons? Their daughter had ice sculptures and a 10-piece band. The arguments continued for weeks. Patricia insisted on expensive catering, designer dresses, and a prestigious venue. Each time Emma stood her ground, and each time I fell more in love with her principles. One evening, after a particularly heated planning session, Emma and I escaped to the peace of our favorite park bench. I am sorry about my mom, she whispered, leaning against my shoulder. She has always been fixated on appearances. Dad says she grew up with nothing, so now she overcompensates. You do not need to apologize, I assured her. I love that you know what matters to you. She looked up at me, her eyes reflecting the sunset. Just you, us, this life we are building together. I almost told her everything then. The words were on the tip of my tongue, but something held me back. Perhaps it was fear, or perhaps it was the memory of my grandfather saying, wait until you know for certain. Our wedding day arrived on a perfect June morning. The community center had been transformed with wildflowers and twinkling lights. Emma was breathtaking in a simple white dress, her grandmother's pearls around her neck. As we exchanged vows, I made a silent promise to tell her everything soon. The weight of my secret felt heavier than ever as I pledged honesty and trust. During the reception, I overheard Patricia talking to another guest. Yes, very quaint is not it. Emma always insists on doing things her way. Hopefully, Jared has more ambition than he shows. My daughter deserves a comfortable life. Later, as Emma and I shared our first dance, I spotted my grandfather's empty chair in the front row, decorated with his favorite blue tie. I had placed it there to honor him, and for a moment, I could almost hear his voice. You will know when the time is right, son. The day after our honeymoon, Patricia began calling regularly with investment opportunities and suggestions for home purchases well beyond what a manufacturing manager should afford. The lakeside development has beautiful starter homes, she mentioned during one call. A bit pricey, but you two deserve to start off right. I know a mortgage broker who could work magic with your applications. Even more concerning was a conversation I accidentally overheard between Patricia and Leo while visiting Emma's childhood home to collect some boxes. That company he works for might be worth looking into, Leo said in a hushed tone. If he gets promoted, there could be opportunities for us. He seems too content where he is, Patricia replied. But now that he is family, we have time to work on that. Emma could encourage him to be more ambitious. I retreated silently, my suspicions growing stronger. That evening, I started keeping a journal of every questionable comment and suggestion, noting dates and exact wording. Something told me I might need evidence later. Emma remained blissfully unaware of these undercurrents, focused on our new life together and her teaching career. We spent our evenings planning modest renovations to our apartment and discussing future dreams. "I do not need a big house or fancy things," she told me one night as we lay in bed. "Just enough for us to be comfortable and maybe a little extra to travel occasionally." "What about you? Any secret wishes?" The irony of her question made me smile sadly. "Just to always have this honesty between us," I said, feeling the weight of my own dishonesty. That night, Patricia called at 11:30 p.m., her voice unusually urgent. "I need to see you and Emma tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. sharp. I have something important to discuss that cannot wait. It is about your financial future." After hanging up, I immediately called Gerald. "She is pushing harder," I told him. "Something feels off about this sudden meeting." "Be careful," he warned. "And remember, you have protected yourself legally. Whatever happens, the company is secure." I slept fitfully that night, my grandfather's warnings echoing through my dreams. Patricia arrived at our apartment at exactly 9 a.m. But she was not alone. Leo trailed behind her, looking smug, and a nervous-looking man in a suit carried a briefcase. "This is Mr. Wilson," Patricia announced. "He is a notary public. I have brought him along to make everything official." Emma looked as confused as I pretended to be. "Official? What is going on?" Mom Patricia smiled broadly, settling herself on our couch like she owned it. "I have discovered an amazing investment opportunity. A retail space in the new downtown development. We need to act fast before someone else snatches it up." Mr. Wilson placed his briefcase on our coffee table, avoiding eye contact. "What does this have to do with us?" I asked carefully. "Well," Patricia leaned forward, "to secure the property, we need significant collateral. Since you work at Wright Manufacturing, I thought you could leverage your position there." My blood ran cold. How much did she know? "I am just a manager," I said. "I do not have any leverage with the company." Patricia's smile never wavered. "Now, Jared, there is no need for modesty in family. We know about your inheritance." Emma turned to me, confusion written across her face. "Inheritance? What is she talking about?" The notary began pulling documents from his briefcase, looking increasingly uncomfortable. "These papers just need your signature," Patricia continued, sliding them toward me. "It is a simple transfer of ownership rights. Temporary, of course, just until the investment pays off." I picked up the papers, slowly scanning the contents with growing alarm. These were not investment documents. They were transfer of ownership forms for Wright Manufacturing, complete with account numbers that should have been private. "Where did you get this information?" I asked, my voice deadly calm. Patricia waved dismissively. "Leo has a friend in financial research. All perfectly legal. The point is, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for all of us, for Emma's future." "I do not understand what is happening," Emma said, her voice rising. "Jared, do you own this company?" The room fell silent. Patricia's triumphant smile told me everything. She had planned this ambush to force my hand, using Emma's confusion as leverage. "Yes," I finally admitted, turning to face my wife. "My grandfather left me the company when he died. I own Wright Manufacturing." Emma's face paled. "All this time, you have been lying to me, all this time." "Not lying," I said desperately. "Just waiting for the right moment to tell you." "The right moment?" Emma stood up, hands trembling. "We are married, Jared." "When exactly was the right moment?" Patricia interjected smoothly. "Emma, darling, can you not see? He did not trust you with the truth. But now we can move forward as a family. All Jared needs to do is sign these papers, and we can all benefit from his good fortune." "I am not signing anything," I stated firmly, standing to face Patricia. "And I think you should leave." Patricia's pleasant mask slipped for a moment. "Think about what you are doing, Jared. Think about Emma." "I am thinking about Emma," I replied, "which is why I will not let you manipulate this situation." Leo stepped forward, his face darkening. You have been playing us all along, living like some blue-collar nobody, while sitting on millions. Who does that, unless they have something to hide? Emma walked out of the room without a word, the door to our bedroom slamming behind her. Look what you have done, Patricia hissed. You have upset her. Sign the papers, and we can fix this whole misunderstanding. Mrs. Jackson, the notary, finally spoke up. I was told this was a routine family business transaction with all parties in agreement. This does not appear to be the case. I cannot notarize these documents under these circumstances. He began packing his briefcase. Wait. Patricia grabbed his arm. He just needs a moment to think clearly. Let go of him. I said, my voice harder than I had ever heard it. This meeting is over. Leo moved toward me menacingly. You think you are so clever, do not you? Tricking everyone, playing poor while judging us. We can make things very difficult for you and your precious company. I reached for my phone. I am calling building security. You have exactly 1 minute to leave. The notary hurriedly excused himself, practically running for the door. Patricia remained, seated, her face a mask of cold calculation. Emma will never forgive this deception, she said. You have lost her already. At least salvage something by working with family. A knock at the door interrupted the standoff. When I opened it, Scott stood there looking grave. May I come in? He asked quietly. Patricia's expression flickered with surprise. Scott, what are you doing here? Mr. Wilson called me. Scott replied, entering the apartment. Said there was something wrong with the meeting you had arranged. He surveyed the scene, eyes lingering on the papers still spread across the coffee table. Patricia, he said, his voice tired. What have you done now? For the first time I saw uncertainty in Patricia's eyes. Just looking out for our daughter's interests, she replied defensively. Scott turned to Leo. Take your mother home. Now. To my surprise, Leo complied without argument, though not without a parting glare in my direction. As they left, Scott remained looking older than his years. I should have warned you, he said once we were alone. Patricia has always been fixated on financial security. Her father abandoned the family when she was young, left them destitute. It marked her. That does not excuse this, I said, still shaking with anger and shock. No, it does not, Scott agreed. But it might help you understand, and it might help you with Emma. He nodded toward the bedroom door. She is hurt, but she is also fair. Talk to her. Tell her everything now. As Scott left, he paused. For what it is worth, I think I understand why you did what you did. And I think my father-in-law would have pulled the same stunt if he had money to leave anyone. His unexpected understanding gave me the courage to knock on our bedroom door, my heart pounding, with fear that I had lost the most valuable thing in my life, Emma's trust. I found Emma sitting on a bench at Blue Cup Coffee, the place where we first met. Her eyes were red, but her posture was composed, dignified even in her hurt. How did you know I would be here? She asked without looking up. Because I know you, I said, softly sitting beside her. Even if you think I do not right now. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The coffee shop bustled around us, oblivious to our private earthquake. $25.6 million, Emma finally said. That is what my mother said. Is that true? Yes. The company, some investments, properties. My grandfather built something significant. And you work as a manager in your own company, she continued. Driving a Honda and living in our little apartment. Yes. Why? Her question hung between us, simple yet impossibly complex. I took a deep breath. My grandfather told me to wait until I knew who truly cared for me, not my money. I have seen what wealth does to relationships, how it warps them. I wanted something real. So I was what? A test. An experiment to see if I was gold digger. Her voice cracked slightly. No, I reached for her hand, relieved when she did not pull away. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. And I was terrified of losing you, either by having you change because of the money or by discovering you only wanted the money. You could have trusted me, she whispered. I know that now, I admitted. But can you honestly say, nothing would have changed if you had known from the beginning? If your mother had known Emma was quiet for a long time? I would like to think not, but after seeing my mother today, I do not know. Maybe you were right to worry. I should have told you before the wedding, I said. That was my mistake. But I was going to tell you. Soon. What stopped you? Fear, I admitted. And then your mother started making comments about investments and loans. I began to suspect she was digging for information. Emma finally looked at me directly. She hired someone to investigate you. After we got engaged, she told me it was just to make sure you were not hiding anything dangerous. But now, I see what she was really looking for. The betrayal in her eyes broke my heart, but I could not tell if it was directed at me or her mother. I feel like such a fool, she continued, caught between my husband's secrets and my mother's greed. I am so sorry, Emma, for all of it. She stood suddenly. I need time to think, to process everything. This is not just about the money, Jared. It is about trust, about starting our marriage with a fundamental lie. As she walked away, I wondered if my grandfather's advice had cost me the only thing that truly mattered. 3 days later, Emma texted me to meet at her parents' house. My stomach churned with anxiety as I knocked on the familiar door. Scott answered, his expression unreadable. Everyone is in the living room, he said simply. The scene I walked into felt like a tribunal. Patricia and Leo sat stiffly on one couch. Emma stood by the fireplace, arms crossed protectively across her chest. Emma has asked us all here to talk, Scott explained, taking his place beside his wife. Emma looked directly at me, then at her mother. I have had time to think about what happened, about the lies and manipulations from both sides. Her voice was steady, and I have made some decisions. Patricia leaned forward. Darling, we were only looking out for your interests. Jared deceived all of us. Stop, Emma said firmly. What you did was attempt to steal from my husband. You researched his finances behind my back and tried to pressure him into signing away his inheritance. It would have benefited you too, Leo interjected. I never asked for that benefit, Emma shot back, and I never gave permission for anyone to act on my behalf. She turned to me. Jared was wrong to keep his inheritance secret from me. That was a betrayal of trust between spouses. My heart sank, but I nodded in acceptance of her judgment. But Emma continued. I understand why he felt he needed to protect himself. Today has only confirmed his concerns were justified. Patricia stood up indignant. You cannot possibly be taking his side after he lied to you for years. I am not taking sides, Emma replied. I am making a choice about my future, and that future includes Jared, if he will still have me. It does not include anyone who would try to manipulate or steal from us. The implication hung heavy in the air. What are you saying? Patricia whispered. I am saying that you have a choice to make, Mom. You can accept that Jared is my husband, that his business is his own, and that neither of us will tolerate further interference. Or you can continue down this path and lose your daughter. The silence that followed was deafening. Scott reached for Patricia's hand, but she pulled away. After everything I have done for you, she said, her voice trembling with anger and hurt. This is how you repay me. This is not about repayment, Emma replied quietly. This is about respect. Patricia stormed out without another word, Leo following after a contemptuous glance our way. Scott remained seated, looking exhausted, but somehow relieved. She will come around, he said eventually. In her own time, in her own way. But you two need to build your life without waiting for her approval. As Emma and I left together hand in hand, I felt a complex mixture of sadness, relief, and profound gratitude. We had survived our first major test as a married couple, though not without scars. The months that followed were a time of rebuilding and discovery. Emma and I moved into a slightly larger apartment, nothing ostentatious, but comfortable enough to start our new chapter. I took her to visit Wright Manufacturing introducing her as both my wife and the owner's wife. The employees who had known my grandfather welcomed her warmly. "I see why you love this place," she said as we toured the factory floor. "It is not just about money, it is a legacy." Together, we established a charitable foundation using a portion of the company profits. The Emma and Jared Wright Education Fund provided scholarships for underprivileged students, combining my resources with her passion for teaching. For the first time, I felt the wealth was truly a blessing rather than a burden. Scott became a regular visitor, often joining us for Sunday dinners. He offered practical advice about the company from his years in construction management, and I valued his straightforward perspective. "Patricia asked about you yesterday," he mentioned casually during one visit about 6 months after the confrontation. Emma looked up sharply. "What did she say?" "Nothing specific," Scott replied. "Just asked if you were happy." I told her you were. It was a small thing, but it felt like the first crack in a very thick wall. Leo remained distant, still convinced we had somehow wronged him by denying him access to money he had not earned. His business opportunities had apparently dried up, and Scott mentioned he had finally taken a steady job at an insurance company. "Sometimes the long road is the only road that gets you somewhere worth being," I told Emma when she expressed concern about her brother. Almost a year after our wedding day, Patricia called Emma directly. Their conversation was brief, awkward, but civil. A week later, she asked if she could visit alone. "Are you sure about this?" I asked Emma. "No," she admitted, "but she is still my mother." Patricia arrived with a stiffness that suggested she was forcing herself to come. She had lost weight, and her usually perfect appearance showed signs of neglect. She handed Emma a small gift bag without meeting her eyes. "What is this?" Emma asked. "Open it," Patricia replied quietly. Inside was a framed photo of Emma as a child sitting on Patricia's lap, both of them laughing at something off camera. "I found it while cleaning out the attic," Patricia explained. "It reminded me of simpler times." It was not quite an apology, but it was a peace offering of sorts. Emma invited her to stay for tea, and though the conversation remained superficial, it was a beginning. As time passed, I often thought about my grandfather. Had he foreseen something like this happening? Had his own experiences taught him the value of caution when it came to wealth? I like to think he would be proud of how things had turned out, not because I had protected the money, but because I had found what truly mattered beyond it. Emma and I eventually decided to build a modest home using some of the inheritance, but staying well within reasonable limits. We designed it together, planning spaces for the children we hoped to have someday, and a library filled with books we both loved. "You know what I think about sometimes?" Emma asked one evening as we sat on the porch of our partially completed home. "What is that?" "How different things might have been if you had told me about the money right away, or if I had known from the beginning." I waited, unsure where she was going with this thought. "I might never have seen that side of my mother," she continued. "I might have continued thinking she was just anxious about my happiness, not calculating what she could gain. In a strange way, your secret forced the truth into the open." "Does that make what I did right?" I asked. Emma smiled gently. "Not entirely, but it makes it understandable and maybe necessary." That night, looking at the stars from our backyard, I felt my grandfather's presence more strongly than I had since his funeral. Money does not define who you are, but it can reveal who others are. The true value of wealth is not in what it can buy, but in the clarity it can bring to what matters most. Sometimes, secrets are not meant to be kept forever, but until the moment when truth can be most clearly seen and understood. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more stories of family trust and the complicated relationships we navigate. Have you ever discovered something important about someone you thought you knew completely? Share your experiences in the comments below. Thank you for listening, and remember that true wealth is measured not by what we possess, but by who remains beside us when everything is revealed.